Hatred doesn't dial at 2 a.m. That's what I kept telling myself as I stared at our phone bill, counting the same 47 calls for the third time. 47 midnight conversations between my wife, Lyra, and Halden Morrison, the boss she claimed made her life unbearable. I'm Orion Vanton, and I've spent 15 years as an IT consultant, which means I notice patterns. Numbers don't lie, even when the people behind them do. Each call averaged 11 minutes. You don't spend 11 minutes complaining about your terrible boss at midnight. You don't call him 47 times in 1 month to discuss quarterly reports. Orion, dinner's ready, Lyra called from the kitchen, her voice carrying that forced cheerfulness she'd perfected lately. Everything about her had become performance art. The way she kissed my cheek when she came home late, how she asked about my day while scrolling through her phone, the elaborate stories about team meetings that somehow always required her presence until 11 p.m. I folded the phone bill and slipped it into my desk drawer. Our daughter Astra was setting the table, her 15-year-old face already showing signs of the tension that had settled over our house like fog. Kids notice everything, even when adults think they're being subtle. Dad, Mom says we might take a vacation this summer, Astra said, passing me the salad bowl. Somewhere tropical. That's nice, sweetheart. I watched Lyra carefully arrange pasta on her plate, her manicured fingers steady despite the conversation we needed to have. How's work, honey? Still dealing with that terrible boss of yours? Lyra's fork paused for just a moment, a micro-expression that spoke volumes. Halden? He's been manageable lately. Less demanding. Less demanding. Right. That's why she'd called him at 12:47 a.m. last Tuesday and talked for 13 minutes. That's good to hear. I know how much you dislike working with him. I don't dislike him, she said quickly, then caught herself. I mean, he's still difficult, but I've learned to handle his expectations better. Astra looked between us, sensing undercurrents she couldn't name. Can I be excused? I have homework. After our daughter left, I studied my wife across the dinner table. Lyra at 40 was still striking. Auburn hair always perfectly styled, green eyes that could sell ice to Eskimos, a smile that had convinced me to marry her 16 years ago. She worked in marketing, which explained her talent for repackaging truth into more palatable versions. I was thinking we should have the Venners over this weekend, I said, testing another theory. It's been too long since we've seen Kara and Greg. Kara Venner was Lyra's best friend and frequent alibi provider. According to Lyra's stories, they'd been having regular girls' nights, wine and complaints about their respective husbands. But I'd noticed Kara's car wasn't in her driveway during several of these alleged gatherings. Kara's been busy lately, Lyra said, not meeting my eyes. New project at work. Maybe next month. I nodded, filing away another inconsistency. How about we clean out the closet this weekend instead? I found some old phone bills we can shred. This time, the reaction was unmistakable. Lyra's hand tightened on her water glass, and a flush crept up her neck. Why would you be looking through old phone bills? Just organizing paperwork. You know how I am about records. She forced a laugh. My detail-oriented husband. Sometimes I think you'd rather analyze spreadsheets than talk to actual people. The comment stung because it contained enough truth to be effective. I was more comfortable with data than emotions, more fluent in code than confrontation, but numbers had their own language, and right now they were screaming. That night, I waited until Lyra's breathing settled into sleep patterns before retrieving the phone bill. I cross-referenced the dates with her calendar, her credit card statements, her explanations for late nights and weekend work sessions. The pattern emerged like a photograph developing in solution. Every emergency project corresponded with a cluster of calls to Halden. Every team dinner happened on nights when she'd spoken to him for more than 10 minutes. Her promotion 6 months ago, the one she'd celebrated by buying expensive lingerie I'd never seen her wear, coincided with the first spike in their midnight conversations. I opened my laptop and began building a timeline. If Lyra was having an affair with her boss, she'd constructed an elaborate framework of deception. But frameworks could be tested, and I knew exactly where to start. The next morning, Lyra mentioned another team dinner, Thursday night at Marcello's, the Italian place downtown. Halden wants to discuss the Henderson account, she explained, applying lipstick with the precision of a surgeon. Could be late. Of course. Work comes first. After she left, I called Marcello's. Hi. I'm confirming a reservation for Thursday night under Morrison or Vanton. Let me check. No, I don't see anything under those names for Thursday. Maybe it's under the company name? Pinnacle Marketing? Nothing for Pinnacle either. Would you like to make a reservation? I hung up, my suspicions crystallizing into certainty. The first lie had collapsed, and I suspected it would take several others with it. That afternoon, I researched voice acting services. What I had in mind required someone convincing, someone who could deliver a scripted performance that would shatter Lyra's carefully constructed world. I found exactly what I needed, a woman in her 40s with a clipped Northeast accent and 15 years of commercial experience. Her name was Patricia Kellerman, and she cost $400 for a single phone call. Worth every penny if it gave me the truth. Patricia called Lyra's cell phone at exactly 6 p.m. on Thursday, just as my wife was supposedly heading to her fabricated team dinner. I sat in my car outside our house, listening through the burner phone Patricia used for the call. "Is this Lyra Vanton?" Patricia's voice was ice-cold professionalism with an undertone of barely controlled fury. "Yes. Who is this?" "This is Halden Morrison, Halden's wife." The silence stretched long enough for me to count my heartbeats. When Lyra finally spoke, her voice had climbed an octave. "I'm sorry. I think you have the wrong number." "I have hotel receipts, Lyra. I have credit card statements. I have photographs." Patricia delivered each lie with surgical precision. "I know about the Marriott on 5th Street. I know about the weekend in Atlantic City you told your husband was a conference." "I don't know what you're talking about." 14 months, Patricia continued, following my script perfectly. 14 months of you manipulating my husband, using your position at his company to seduce him. Did you think I wouldn't notice? Lyra's breathing became audible through the phone. "Listen, Mrs. Morrison, there's been a misunderstanding. The only misunderstanding is thinking you could destroy my family without consequences. I'm prepared to go to your husband, your daughter, your friends. I'm prepared to make this very public unless you end this immediately. Please, you don't understand. It's not what you think." "Then explain it to me. Explain why my husband's phone shows 47 calls to your number last month. Explain why he comes home smelling like your perfume." I had to admire Patricia's improvisational skills. She was adding details I hadn't scripted, building on Lyra's obvious panic. I need to think. You have 24 hours to figure out how you're going to end this. After that, I start making phone calls." Patricia hung up, leaving Lyra with the dial tone and the wreckage of her secret world. I waited 15 minutes before driving home, giving Lyra time to process what had just happened. When I walked through the front door, I found her pacing in the living room, her phone clutched in one hand like a lifeline. "Orion, thank goodness you're home." She rushed to me, and for the first time in months, her embrace felt genuine, born of desperation rather than duty. "Something terrible has happened." "What's wrong?" I kept my voice level, concerned but not alarmed. "Halden's wife called me. She believes that Halden and I are having an affair." I pulled back to look at her face, noting the genuine fear in her eyes. "That's ridiculous. Why would she think that?" "I don't know. She mentioned phone calls, hotel receipts. She's obviously confused, but she threatened to call you, to tell Astra. She could ruin everything." "Ruin what, exactly?" Lyra caught herself, realizing how her words sounded. "My reputation, my career. You know how these things spread. Even false accusations can destroy someone." I guided her to the couch, playing the supportive husband while my phone recorded everything from my jacket pocket. The screen was dark, but the microphone captured every word of what came next. "Maybe you should tell me exactly what she said. If we're going to handle this situation, I need to understand what we're dealing with." And that's when Lyra began to confess. It started as damage control, admitting to just enough truth to explain away the phone calls and late nights. But once she started talking, the whole story poured out like water through a broken dam. "It began 14 months ago," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Halden started asking me to stay late, to help with special projects. I thought it was professional recognition. But it wasn't. Not entirely. He was attentive. He made me feel valued in ways I hadn't felt in years. One night, after a particularly difficult client presentation, we went for drinks to celebrate. One thing led to another. I maintained my expression of concerned understanding while my phone captured every detail. How often? At first, just occasionally. But then I got promoted, and he said it was because of my exceptional work, my dedication. The late nights became more frequent." "The team dinners?" Lyra's face crumpled. "There were no team dinners. We'd meet at hotels, sometimes at his apartment when his wife was traveling. I know how this sounds, but it wasn't just physical. He understood my ambitions, my frustrations. He made me feel like I could be more than just a suburban wife and mother." The casual cruelty of that statement hit me like a physical blow, but I kept my expression neutral. "What about the phone calls, the ones at midnight?" He'd call when he couldn't sleep, when he was thinking about me. We'd talk about work, about our dreams, about how complicated everything had become. "Complicated how?" I never meant for it to go this far. I love you, Orion. I love our life, our daughter. But Halden offered something different. Excitement, passion, a future where I could be more than I am here. More than she was here. More than a wife and mother. More than the woman I'd supported through graduate school, career changes, and 15 years of building a life together. What kind of future? He talked about leaving his wife, about us starting over somewhere new. He said I was wasted in this small-minded town, that I deserved better. And you believed him? For the first time, doubt crept into her voice. I wanted to believe him, but when his wife called today, I realized how naive I've been. He's not going to leave her. He's not going to risk his reputation for me. I'm just the other woman. Tears started flowing, and I found myself in the surreal position of comforting my wife while she confessed to betraying everything we'd built together. What do you want to do? I asked, still playing the supportive husband. I want to end it. I want to fix this before it destroys our family. Can you forgive me? Can we find a way through this? I held her while she cried, my phone recording her sobs along with her confessions. We'll figure it out, I said, and meant it, just not in the way she hoped. That night, after Lyra cried herself to sleep, I transferred the recording to my computer and began transcribing every word. 14 months of deception, mapped out in her own voice. But this was just the beginning. The next morning, I called in sick to work and began the methodical process of documenting my wife's betrayal. The recording was devastating, but I needed more than her tearful confession. I needed proof that would stand up in court and protect my daughter's future. Lyra had left early for what she claimed would be her final conversation with Halden, a breakup meeting to end their affair before his wife could cause more damage. The irony wasn't lost on me that she was using a fictional threat to justify real actions. I started with her journal. For years, Lyra had kept a leather-bound diary on her nightstand. I'd always respected her privacy, never reading a single entry. That courtesy ended the moment she confessed to 14 months of calculated deception. The entries painted a picture far more disturbing than simple adultery. This wasn't a woman who'd fallen into temptation. This was someone who'd systematically manipulated everyone around her to maintain her double life. March 15th. Orion's getting suspicious about the late nights. Need to be more strategic about intimacy timing. If I initiate twice a week, he won't question the nights I'm not available. April 2nd. Told Orion that Halden is demanding and difficult. Better to paint him as someone I dislike. Creates perfect cover for the promotion and extra attention. May 20th. Astra asked why I'm always on my phone. Need to be more careful about texting during family time. Maybe get a second phone? June 8th. Kara's being helpful with alibis, but I think she suspects something. Might need to bring her into the circle. She's too smart to fool indefinitely. August 14th. Orion complimented my new lingerie. Felt guilty for about 5 seconds. It was a gift from Halden. But Orion seems happier lately, so maybe this arrangement is working for everyone. I photographed every page, my hands steady, despite the rage building in my chest. Lyra hadn't just betrayed me. She'd turned our entire marriage into a performance designed to facilitate her affair. The journal revealed the depth of Kara Venner's involvement. Lyra's best friend hadn't just provided alibis, she'd been the logistics coordinator for the entire operation. Hotel reservations made under Kara's name, cover stories about girls' nights that never happened, even text messages sent to me from Kara's phone pretending to be Lyra when she was actually with Halden. I drove to the Venner house at 10 a.m., knowing Greg would be at work and Kara would be home with their toddler. She answered the door in yoga pants and a stained t-shirt, her expression shifting from surprise to wariness when she saw my face. Orion, what brings you by? We need to talk about Lyra. The color drained from her face. What about her? About the hotels you've been booking, about the alibis you've been providing, about how you've been helping my wife maintain her affair with her boss. Kara glanced around the neighborhood, then stepped aside to let me in. Her living room was scattered with toys and the debris of domestic life, a sharp contrast to the sophisticated deception she'd been orchestrating. I don't know what you're talking about. Does Greg know you've been using his credit card to book hotel rooms for Lyra and Halden? Does he know you've been lying to him for over a year? Her composure cracked. It's not what you think. Then explain it to me. Kara sank into her couch, suddenly looking older than her 40 years. Lyra was miserable. You have to understand, she felt trapped, invisible. When Halden started paying attention to her, she came alive again. So you decided to help her destroy our marriage? I decided to help my friend find some happiness. She wasn't trying to hurt you or Astra. She just needed something for herself. Something that required elaborate deception and using you as an accomplice. I never meant for it to go this far. At first, it was just covering for a few dinners, maybe a weekend conference that didn't exist. But then it became this whole thing, and I was in too deep to back out. I pulled out my phone and showed her the recording app. I need you to tell me exactly what you did to help Lyra maintain this affair. Every hotel reservation, every fake alibi, every lie you told on her behalf. Orion, please? The alternative is explaining to Greg why his credit card shows charges for hotel rooms he's never seen. Your choice. It took 2 hours, but Kara gave me everything. Dates, locations, methods of deception. She'd even saved text message chains where Lyra detailed her plans and asked for specific cover stories. By the time I left, I had enough evidence to support a dozen different legal strategies. But I wasn't done yet. That afternoon, I visited my attorney, Janet Reeves, a sharp woman in her 50s who specialized in family law with the precision of a surgeon. I'd known her professionally for years, but this was the first time I'd needed her services personally. This is comprehensive, she said, reviewing the journal photos, the confession recording, and Kara's signed statement. Your wife didn't just have an affair, she constructed an entire framework of deception to maintain it. What does that mean for custody? In this state, adultery affects asset division and custody decisions, but the level of premeditation here, the systematic lying, the involvement of third parties, this goes beyond simple infidelity. This shows a pattern of manipulation that any judge would find concerning. Concerning enough to award primary custody, combined with your stable employment, clean record, and the fact that you're not the one who violated the marriage contract, yes, I'd say your chances are very good. That evening, Lyra came home with red eyes and a story about ending things with Halden. She told him their affair was over, that his wife's threats had made her realize how destructive their relationship had become. He didn't take it well, she said, settling into my arms on the couch. He said I was overreacting, that his wife was bluffing, but I can't live with this guilt anymore. I stroked her hair, playing the forgiving husband while planning her destruction. You did the right thing. Can we really get past this? Can you really forgive me? I think we can work through anything if we're honest with each other. The irony was perfect. Lyra was seeking comfort from the man she'd been systematically deceiving, while I gathered evidence to ensure she'd lose everything that mattered to her. But my phone was still recording, and she wasn't done confessing. 2 weeks later, Lyra discovered my insurance policy. I'd been careful about hiding the recordings and journal photos, but I'd underestimated my wife's paranoia. She'd started checking my phone, my computer, my desk drawers, looking for evidence that I knew more than I was letting on. She found the original recording of her confession on my laptop. You recorded me? Her voice was ice-cold fury mixed with genuine shock. You manipulated me into confessing, then recorded every word. I looked up from my morning coffee, noting that Astra had already left for school. Good. This conversation needed to happen without our daughter witnessing the complete breakdown of her parents' marriage. You manipulated me for 14 months. I documented 2 hours. That's different. You violated my trust, my privacy. You made me believe you were supporting me while you were gathering evidence against me. The moral inversion was breathtaking. Lyra had constructed an elaborate framework of lies, involved her best friend in deceiving me, and systematically betrayed every promise she'd made when we married. But I was the villain for recording her confession. I violated your trust? That's your position here? You're sick, Orion. This whole setup, the fake phone call from Halden's wife recording me when I was vulnerable, it's manipulative and cruel. The phone call from Halden's wife was fake? Her face went white as she realized what she'd just admitted. In her fury, she'd revealed that she knew the threat that had prompted her confession was fabricated. How did you know it was fake, Lyra? Halden told me his wife doesn't know about us. So you've been talking to him since your supposed breakup? The lies were collapsing faster than she could construct new ones. It's not what you think. Then tell me what it is. We needed to coordinate our stories, make sure we were handling the situation the same way. What situation? I thought you ended things. Lyra's composure finally shattered completely. Fine. You want the truth? I didn't end anything. Halden and I are still together, and we're planning to leave our spouses. The only thing that changed is now I know you're a manipulative monster who records private conversations. I pulled out my phone and showed her the active recording app. Would you like to repeat that for the record? The fury in her eyes was magnificent. For the first time in our marriage, I was seeing the real Lyra. Not the performance version, but the woman who'd been calculating my destruction for over a year. You can't use any of this in court. It's illegal to record someone without their consent. Actually, in this state, only one party needs to consent to recording a conversation. I consented to recording both conversations I participated in. Her face cycled through several emotions: rage, fear, calculation, before settling on desperate manipulation. Orion, please, think about Astra. Think about what this will do to our daughter. I am thinking about Astra. I'm thinking about what kind of mother she deserves. I'm a good mother. Good mothers don't systematically lie to their families. Good mothers don't plan to abandon their children for their boss. I never said I was abandoning Astra. No? Then explain this journal entry from last week. I read from my phone. Halden thinks we should start fresh somewhere new. Maybe Astra would be better off with Orion anyway. He's always been the more stable parent. Lyra's face crumpled as she realized the extent of evidence I'd gathered. You read my private journal? I read the journal of the woman who's been planning to destroy my life. Privacy is a privilege you forfeited when you decided to betray everything we built together. That afternoon, Lyra moved out. Not to be with Halden, but to her sister's house across town. She took 2 suitcases and a lawyer's business card, leaving behind 15 years of shared history, and a daughter who couldn't understand why her mother had suddenly become a stranger. Where's Mom going? Astra asked, watching from our front window as Lyra loaded her car. Your mother needs some time to figure out what she wants. Is she coming back? I looked at my daughter, 15 years old, smart enough to sense the undercurrents, but still young enough to hope for simple answers. I don't know, sweetheart, but whatever happens, you and I are going to be fine. Astra nodded, but I could see the questions she wasn't asking. Why had her mother's work schedule become so erratic? Why had the late-night phone calls stopped? Why did her parents suddenly speak to each other like polite strangers? That evening, Lyra's attorney called. Richard Blackwood had a reputation for aggressive tactics and expensive settlements. His opening move was predictably theatrical. Mr. Vanton, my client is prepared to be reasonable about asset division, but she's concerned about your recent behavior, recording private conversations, violating her privacy, creating a hostile home environment. These actions suggest someone who might not be suitable for primary custody. Your client had a 14-month affair with her boss, systematically lied to her family, and planned to abandon her daughter for a fresh start with her lover. I documented her confessions to protect my child's interests. Alleged affair, alleged confessions, and documentation obtained through deceptive means. I have her journal entries detailing the deception, signed statements from her accomplice, and recordings of her admitting to ongoing adultery. Would you like me to send copies? The line went quiet for several seconds. We'll be in touch? But Lyra wasn't finished. If I thought her moving out would end the drama, I'd seriously underestimated my wife's capacity for escalation. The next phase of our war was about to begin, and it would be fought in the most public arena possible, our neighborhood, our daughter's school, and the workplace where Lyra's affair had started. The Hendersons' annual barbecue was a neighborhood institution, 30 families gathering in their backyard for burgers, gossip, and the kind of suburban social theater that makes small communities function. Lyra and I had attended together for 8 years running, playing the role of stable married couple while our neighbors shared updates on jobs, kids, and local drama. This year, I went alone. Where's Lyra? Asked Janet Henderson, our host, as she handed me a beer. Work obligations, I said, which was technically true. Lyra was indeed dealing with work-related complications, specifically how to maintain her affair with her boss now that their spouses were aware of the situation. I'd spent the afternoon preparing for this moment. The neighborhood app had been buzzing with speculation about our separation. Lyra had been seen moving boxes from our house, and in a community where everyone knows everyone else's business, her absence required explanation. I positioned myself near the outdoor speakers, where the Hendersons' Bluetooth system was playing background music from someone's phone. It took minimal effort to connect my own device and queue up a very specific audio file. Hey everyone, I called out, raising my beer to get attention. I wanted to thank you all for your support during this difficult time. Some of you have been asking about Lyra and me, and I thought you deserved to hear the truth directly from her. I pressed play. Lyra's voice filled the backyard, crystal clear through the outdoor speakers. It began 14 months ago. Halden started asking me to stay late to help with special projects. I thought it was professional recognition. The conversations around me stopped. 30 neighbors turned to stare at the speakers, then at me, as my wife's confession played out in excruciating detail. There were no team dinners. We'd meet at hotels, sometimes at his apartment when his wife was traveling. I know how this sounds, but it wasn't just physical. He understood my ambitions, my frustrations. Janet Henderson reached for the speaker controls, but I gently intercepted her hand. Let them hear it all. He talked about leaving his wife, about us starting over somewhere new. He said I was wasted in this small-minded town, that I deserved better. The recording continued for another 2 minutes, Lyra detailing her systematic deception, her manipulation of our marriage, her plans for a future that didn't include the life we'd built together. When it ended, the backyard was completely silent except for the sound of someone's beer bottle hitting the ground. "That's my wife," I said conversationally. "Recorded 6 days ago when she was confessing her affair and asking for my forgiveness. I thought you should know why she won't be attending neighborhood events anymore." The reactions were immediate and varied. Some neighbors looked horrified, others fascinated, a few genuinely sympathetic. But the damage was done. Lyra's reputation in our community was completely destroyed. My phone started buzzing with text messages before I'd even left the barbecue. Word was spreading through the neighborhood app, social media, and the informal networks that make suburban gossip more efficient than professional journalism. But I wasn't finished. The next morning, I drove to Pinnacle Marketing, the sleek glass building where Lyra worked and where her affair with Halden Morrison had begun. I'd been there dozens of times over the years, attending company parties and meeting Lyra for lunch. The security guard knew me by name. "Morning, Mr. Vanton. Here to see your wife?" "Actually, I'm here to see Halden Morrison. Is he in?" "Let me call up to his office." Halden agreed to see me, probably out of curiosity about what the betrayed husband might want to discuss. His corner office was everything you'd expect from a successful marketing executive: floor-to-ceiling windows, expensive furniture, and a view of the city that suggested importance and power. "Orion," he said, standing to shake my hand. "I'm sorry about the situation with Lyra. These things are always complicated." Halden Morrison was 50 years old, silver-haired, and possessed the kind of casual confidence that comes from never facing real consequences. He was taller than me, broader through the shoulders, and clearly accustomed to being the most important person in any room. "Complicated is one word for it," I said. 14 months of systematic deception is another. "Look, I understand you're upset, but adult relationships are complex. Lyra and I developed feelings for each other over time. Neither of us planned for this to happen." "You didn't plan to manipulate a married employee into an affair that would advance her career?" His expression hardened slightly. "Lyra's promotions were based on merit. Her personal feelings toward me were separate from her professional performance. Her personal feelings toward you included detailed journal entries about managing my suspicions and timing intimacy with me strategically. Would you like to hear some excerpts?" For the first time, Halden looked genuinely uncomfortable. "I think you should leave." "In a moment. First, I want to show you something." I pulled out my phone and opened the neighborhood app, where the recording from last night's barbecue had been shared 43 times. "Your affair is now public knowledge in our community. Lyra's reputation is completely destroyed, and yours is following close behind." "You can't prove anything." "I can prove everything. Journal entries, recordings, hotel receipts, witness statements. The question is whether you want this to stay at the neighborhood level or expand to include your wife, your children, and your professional colleagues." Halden's face went through several color changes. "What do you want?" "I want you to understand that actions have consequences. You seduced a married woman, destroyed a family, and manipulated someone you had power over. Those choices have costs." "Are you threatening me?" "I'm explaining mathematics. You created this situation, and now you get to live with the results." I left his office without another word, but I wasn't done with Halden Morrison. The next phase of my plan would hit him where it hurt most: his carefully constructed image of success and respectability. That afternoon, I received a call from Astra's school counselor. "Mr. Vanton, I wanted to check in about Astra. Some of her classmates have been asking questions about your family situation." The gossip had reached our daughter's school. In a community this size, scandal travels fast, and children hear everything their parents discuss. "What kind of questions?" "Whether her parents are getting divorced, why her mother moved out, that sort of thing. Astra's handling it well, but I wanted you to know she might need some extra support." I picked Astra up from school that afternoon and took her for ice cream, our traditional venue for serious conversations. "Dad, people are saying weird things about Mom." "What kind of things?" "That she was dating her boss, that she lied to us, that she's not coming home." Astra's voice was carefully controlled, but I could see the pain underneath. "Is it true?" I'd been dreading this moment, the conversation where I'd have to explain adult failures to my teenage daughter. But Astra deserved honesty, even when it was painful. "Your mother made some choices that hurt our family. She's been seeing someone from work, and she hasn't been truthful about it." "For how long?" "More than a year." Astra nodded slowly, processing information that confirmed what she'd already suspected. "Are you getting divorced?" "Probably." "Will I still live with you?" "Yes. You'll always have a home with me." She was quiet for several minutes, working through the implications. I'm angry at her. That's understandable. But I'm also sad for her. She's going to lose everything, isn't she? My 15-year-old daughter had grasped the situation with painful clarity. Lyra's choices hadn't just destroyed our marriage. They'd cost her the respect of her community, the trust of her daughter, and soon, her comfortable life. She made her choices, I said. Now she has to live with them. But Lyra wasn't accepting the consequences quietly. Her next move would force me to escalate my own tactics, turning our private war into a very public spectacle. Lyra's counterattack came through her lawyer and the family court system. Richard Blackwood filed an emergency motion claiming I was an unfit parent who had created a hostile environment through harassment, invasion of privacy, and public humiliation. The motion requested immediate supervised visitation and a psychological evaluation. The hearing was scheduled for the following Friday. I had 5 days to prepare for a legal battle that would determine my daughter's future. Janet Reeves was confident but realistic. They're trying to flip the narrative, make you the villain and her the victim. It's a common tactic when the evidence is overwhelming. Will it work? Not if we present your case properly. The journal entries alone demonstrate systematic deception and manipulation. The recording shows her admitting to ongoing adultery and plans to abandon her daughter. But we need to be prepared for them to attack your methods. What kind of attacks? They'll paint you as controlling, manipulative, possibly abusive. They'll claim the recording was obtained illegally, that reading her journal was a violation of privacy, that publicly humiliating her shows an unstable personality. And our response? Documentation. Every hotel receipt, every lie, every manipulation she used to maintain her affair. We'll show the judge that you were protecting yourself and your daughter from someone who had systematically betrayed her family. That evening, I sat in my home office organizing evidence while Astra did homework in the next room. The house felt different without Lyra, quieter but also more honest. We weren't performing family harmony anymore. We were just living. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "We need to talk. H." Halden Morrison wanted a conversation. Interesting. We met at a coffee shop downtown, neutral territory where neither of us had the advantage of familiar surroundings. Halden looked like he hadn't slept well. His usual polished appearance was slightly frayed around the edges. "My wife knows," he said without preamble. "About the affair?" "About everything. Someone sent her copies of the hotel receipts, the phone records, even excerpts from Lyra's journal. She's filing for divorce and demanding full custody of our children." I sipped my coffee, maintaining neutral expression while processing this information. "That's unfortunate." "Did you send them?" "I didn't need to. Word travels fast in small communities." "My career is over. The company's conducting an internal investigation into my relationship with Lyra. I'll be lucky to avoid criminal charges for abuse of power." "Actions have consequences." Halden leaned forward, his composure cracking. "You destroyed my life." "You destroyed your life. I just documented the process." "What do you want? Money? A public apology? Just tell me what it will take to end this." "I want you to understand something," I said, setting down my coffee cup. "You didn't just have an affair with my wife. You manipulated someone you had power over, helped her systematically deceive her family, and encouraged her to abandon her daughter for a fresh start with you. Those choices have costs." "I never told her to abandon Astra." "You told her she deserved better than her small-minded life. You encouraged her to believe she was wasted on her family. What did you think would happen?" Halden's face went through several expressions before settling on defeated resignation. "What happens now? Now you live with the consequences of your choices, just like everyone else." I left him sitting in the coffee shop, staring into his cup like it might contain answers to questions he was afraid to ask. The custody hearing was a masterclass in legal theater. Richard Blackwood presented Lyra as a woman who'd made a mistake but was committed to rebuilding her relationship with her daughter. He painted me as a vengeful husband who'd violated his wife's privacy and publicly humiliated her out of spite. "Your Honor," he said during his opening statement, "Mr. Vanton's actions show a pattern of controlling behavior that escalated into harassment and public humiliation. He recorded private conversations without consent, invaded his wife's personal writings, and broadcast her most vulnerable moments to their entire community. This is not the behavior of a stable parent." Janet Reeves's response was surgical. "Your Honor, Mr. Vanton discovered that his wife was systematically deceiving their family, involving third parties in elaborate lies, and planning to abandon their daughter for a relationship with her boss. He documented these facts to protect his child's interests. The evidence speaks for itself." She presented the journal entries, the recordings, Kara Venner's deposition, and hotel receipts spanning 14 months. The pattern of deception was undeniable. This wasn't a woman who'd made a mistake, but someone who'd constructed an elaborate framework of lies to facilitate her betrayal. When Lyra took the stand, she tried to present herself as a victim of my manipulation. "He set me up," she said, tears flowing on cue. "He hired someone to call me pretending to be Halden's wife, then recorded me when I was vulnerable and scared. He violated my privacy, humiliated me publicly, and tried to turn our daughter against me." "But did you have an affair with your boss?" Janet asked during cross-examination. "Yes, but..." "For 14 months?" "Yes." "Did you lie to your husband about your whereabouts?" "Yes, but the circumstances..." "Did you involve your friend Kara in providing false alibis? She was trying to help..." "Did you write in your journal about manipulating your husband's suspicions and timing intimacy strategically?" Lyra's composure finally cracked completely. "You don't understand what it's like to feel invisible in your own life." "Did you write that your daughter might be better off with her father because he was the more stable parent?" "I was confused. I was..." "Just yes or no, Mrs. Vanton?" "Yes." The judge's decision was swift and comprehensive. I received primary custody of Astra, the family home, and most of our shared assets. Lyra was granted supervised visitation pending completion of counseling and a psychological evaluation. "The evidence presented in this case," Judge Martinez said, "demonstrates a pattern of systematic deception that lasted over a year. While the court doesn't condone Mr. Vanton's methods of discovery, the welfare of the minor child must be the primary consideration. Mrs. Vanton's actions show a concerning disregard for her family's stability and her daughter's emotional well-being. That evening, I sat on my front porch with Astra, watching our neighborhood settle into evening routines. Lights came on in kitchen windows, families gathered for dinner, children played in yards while parents watched from doorways. "Do you think Mom will be okay?" Astra asked. "Eventually. She'll have to build a new life, but she's smart and capable." "Do you hate her?" I considered the question carefully. Hate was too simple an emotion for what I felt toward Lyra. Disappointment, betrayal, anger, but also a strange kind of pity for someone who'd traded everything real for something that was always going to be temporary. "No, I hate what she did, but I don't hate her." "Will you ever forgive her?" "Forgiveness isn't about her, sweetheart. It's about us moving forward without carrying anger that will only hurt us." 6 months later, I received a letter from my mother, or rather, a letter she'd written before her passing 2 years earlier, with instructions to deliver it only if I needed permission to protect myself. "Dear Orion," it began, "if you're reading this, something has gone wrong with your marriage, and you're questioning whether you have the right to fight for yourself and Astra. You do. I saw something in Lyra years ago, a selfishness that worried me, a willingness to sacrifice others for her own desires. I hoped I was wrong, but if you're reading this, I probably wasn't. Don't let guilt or misplaced loyalty prevent you from protecting what matters most. You're a good man, a good father, and you deserve better than someone who would betray the family you've built together. Take care of yourself and that beautiful granddaughter of mine." I framed the letter and hung it above my desk, not as a victory trophy, but as a reminder that sometimes love means having the courage to protect what matters most, even when the cost is everything you thought you wanted. Lyra moved to another city 6 months after the divorce was finalized. She found a new job, a new apartment, and eventually a new relationship with someone who didn't know about her capacity for systematic deception. Astra visits her twice a month, and they're slowly rebuilding something that might eventually resemble trust. Halden Morrison was fired from Pinnacle Marketing and divorced by his wife. Last I heard, he was working for a smaller firm in a different state, trying to rebuild a career and reputation that had been permanently damaged by his choices. As for me, I learned that sometimes the most important battles are fought not with violence or dramatic gestures, but with patience, documentation, and an unwavering commitment to protecting what matters most. The numbers don't lie, and neither do the consequences of our choices. Hatred doesn't dial at midnight. But justice? Justice rings loud and clear, even when it takes 14 months to answer the call.